I was watering the plants outside when I heard a familiar voice yell from the guest house patio. Emily, do you have any almond milk? Your dad needs it for his cereal. I didn't answer. I just kept trimming the rosemary, hand steady, heart not so much. It's still strange hearing them call for me like that, as if we hadn't been strangers for the past decade. As if they hadn't thrown me out at 17 with nothing but a duffel bag and a second-hand coat. Now they're here, living in the guest house of my home, rent-free, with their groceries delivered, Wi-Fi strong, and a roof I paid for with every sleepless night and every shift I took during college just to survive. Sometimes I watch them from my kitchen window, laughing like it's 2008, like the world never split in half. And sometimes, when the house is quiet and my chest tightens with all the things I never said, I wonder, did they forget? Or do they just think I did? Growing up, I always knew I was the invisible one. I wasn't the loudest, the smartest, or the favorite. That was Rachel, my older sister. Rachel could do no wrong. Straight B's were brave attempts, while my straight A's were just expected. She got a car on her 16th birthday. I got to borrow it when it needed gas. I wasn't bitter back then. I genuinely believed that if I worked hard enough, stayed quiet enough, and proved myself enough, I'd finally earn their full attention. Maybe even their love. I cleaned up without being asked. I helped Mom fold the laundry and made dinner when she was too tired. Dad never noticed. Mom would walk in, smell the pasta, and say, "Why'd you waste the good tomatoes on a Monday?" I remember one winter, I must have been 12, I won a school award for writing. I came home beaming, clutching the certificate like gold. Mom looked up from her phone and said, "That's nice, but maybe next time aim for a trophy." Rachel had brought home a cheerleading trophy 2 weeks earlier. It still sat on the mantle like royalty. Even the way they spoke to her was different, lighter, warmer. They teased and laughed and let her bend the rules. With me, everything was rigid, cold, earned. I can't count the number of times I sat at dinner, quietly hoping someone would ask me about my day. Just once. I stopped trying after a while. They didn't hit me. They didn't scream. But that's what made it confusing. What do you call a wound that doesn't bruise? Even now, I remember being 13 and overhearing my mom say to a neighbor, "Emily's the responsible one. Thank God, she doesn't need much from us." I was proud. And then I realized that was the problem. I never needed much. So they gave me even less. It happened 2 weeks after my 17th birthday. There wasn't a huge blow-up, no dramatic screaming match. Just a quiet, cold conversation over leftover meatloaf. "We think it's time you start figuring things out," my dad said, barely looking up from his plate. I blinked. "What do you mean?" Mom wiped her mouth with a napkin, calm as ever. "You're almost an adult. Rachel moved in with her boyfriend when she was your age. You should think about next steps." "But I'm still in school," I whispered. Dad shrugged. "Plenty of people work and study. It builds character." I wanted to ask why me, but I already knew. Rachel was their pride. I was the spare. That night, I came home from my weekend shift at the diner to find my bedroom door closed, a small suitcase sitting outside. My things were folded with surgical neatness. A silent message, "This isn't your home anymore." There was no hug. No, "We'll miss you." Just Mom handing me a list of nearby rentals. "We'll help with first month's rent," she said, as if that was generous. I didn't cry. Not in front of them. I walked out with that suitcase and a plastic grocery bag filled with what little they hadn't packed. My journal, a half-used bottle of shampoo, and the scarf my grandmother had left me. It was cold that night. And I remember thinking, this is how it feels to be unwanted. At first, I kept waiting for them to call. A birthday text. A check-in. A moment of regret. But the silence stretched on. Days into weeks, weeks into months. So, I stopped waiting. I got a job at a bookstore and took classes at night. I rented a room above a garage from an old woman named Marion who insisted I eat with her on Sundays. It was the first time someone noticed when I was quiet. I didn't reach out. I didn't update them on my grades or my new address. I deleted their numbers from my phone. Not in anger, in acceptance. I realized that chasing love shouldn't feel like begging for scraps. Years passed. I graduated with honors, got a good job, saved every penny. I didn't post much on social media, didn't need to prove anything. I just kept building. I moved into my own apartment, then eventually bought a house. A big one, with a guest house in the back that I thought I'd turn into a creative studio. Funny how things change. I wasn't angry anymore. I just no longer needed their approval. Their silence stopped wounding me. It started freeing me. For the first time, my silence wasn't fear, it was freedom. It happened at a wedding. Rachel was getting married again, and I wasn't invited, of course. But one of her bridesmaids, Claire, recognized me a week later in a coffee shop near my office. "You're Emily, right? Rachel's sister?" I nodded slowly, bracing myself. Claire smiled, warm and soft. "I met you once years ago. You brought soup to my grandmother's house when she was sick. You probably don't even remember." I blinked. Oh, honestly don't. She talked about you for weeks, Claire said. Said you reminded her of herself. Quiet, gentle, thoughtful. She paused, sipping her drink. "Rachel always said you were distant. Selfish even. But after meeting you and hearing from my grandma, I don't think she ever really knew you." That moment sat with me for days. I didn't know Claire. She had no reason to lie. But hearing anyone say they saw me, the real me, was like water to parched ground. A few weeks later, my Aunt Linda, the only relative who never fully turned her back on me, sent me a message. "Just wanted you to know. I heard from a few people at the wedding. They're starting to talk. People are realizing it wasn't you. It was never you." It hit me in waves. After all those years of being painted as the problem, the one who left, the one who didn't try hard enough, someone finally looked deeper. Someone saw the truth. And the moment I stopped trying to prove myself was the moment the truth began speaking on its own. The first message came from Rachel. "Hey. So things got a little messy after the wedding. People are talking. Maybe we should chat? Clear the air? No apology. Just optics." Then Mom texted. "Heard from Aunt Linda that there's some confusion going around. We don't want people getting the wrong idea. Maybe it's time we reset things, start fresh?" It was strange how suddenly they remembered I existed, now that the truth was starting to trickle out. For years, my silence was ignored. Now it made them nervous. They never said sorry. Not once. Instead, they blamed timing, miscommunication, misunderstandings. My father even called and left a voicemail. "We never meant for you to feel excluded, Emily. You could have said something if you felt that way." As if it was my fault for being hurt. As if the 17-year-old they pushed out should have written a polite memo expressing her pain. Then came the kicker, Rachel again. "Also, if you could take down that old photo of Grandma and Claire from your Instagram, it's kind of making people talk." That was it. The real reason. Not love. Not healing. Just image management. They weren't sorry. They were embarrassed. And the worst part? They still didn't see the difference. It was a Tuesday night. I had just gotten home from work, fed my cat, and was settling into a quiet evening when my phone buzzed. It was a voice message from an unknown number. "Hi, Emily. I hope this isn't too strange. It's Claire. From the coffee shop." Her voice was calm, but you could hear the emotion rising beneath it. "I just wanted to say thank you. I found out from my aunt that you used to volunteer at the care center. That's where you met my grandmother. She passed away last month, and I needed you to know what you meant to her." There was a pause, and then her voice cracked. "You didn't just bring her soup. You sat with her. You read to her. She said you were the only person who made her feel human again. She never forgot your name." Tears slipped down my face before I even realized I was crying. Claire continued, softer now. "I've met your family. I've heard what they say. But they were wrong, Emily. You didn't just save my grandmother's life. You gave her dignity when no one else did. And I just wanted to say thank you. From all of us." That night, I sat on the couch in silence. The kind of silence that wraps around you like a warm blanket, not an empty echo. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't forgotten. I was seen. Fully. Finally. And not for what I gave or how obedient I'd been, but for the quiet kindness I'd always carried, even when no one was watching. It had been almost a year since Rachel's wedding when I got the email. Subject line: let's reconnect. It was from my mother. She said they were going through some financial issues. That dad had retired early, and their condo was too expensive. She didn't ask outright, but the suggestion was loud between the lines. We heard you have a guest house, she wrote. Maybe we could visit for a while, see how things feel. I stared at the message, then closed my laptop. 3 days later, she called. I let it go to voicemail. Then Rachel tried. We all make mistakes, she said, in that perfect, practiced voice. Maybe it's time to stop holding on to things that don't matter. She didn't get it. They never had. So I wrote one line back to my mother's email. No. I wish you well, but the answer is no. No anger. No justifications. Just a calm boundary. I had spent years trying to be what they needed, soft enough to love, silent enough to ignore, strong enough to endure. Now, I didn't need to explain my piece to the people who once handed me a suitcase and shut a door. And that guest house? It stayed empty for a while. Then I turned it into a community reading space, filled it with books, tea, warmth, and stories like mine. A place for the ones who were pushed out but never gave up. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't being rejected. It's realizing the people you loved most never really tried to know you. For years, I believed if I worked harder, gave more, stayed quiet, stayed kind, they'd come around. That they'd see me. But love that asks you to shrink isn't love. And family that only shows up when they need something isn't family. If you're listening to this and it feels too familiar, if you've ever been the one left out, blamed, overlooked, please hear this. You are not difficult. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are simply too true for people who survive by pretending. The right people won't flinch at your boundaries. They won't be threatened by your growth. They will celebrate it. And even if it takes years, even if your healing is quiet, slow, and often lonely, it's still holy. Your worth was never up for debate. They may never say sorry, but you no longer need them to. You've already come home to yourself.